I think one of the things I want to kick off with is, sort of securing the SDLC. What are the risks there? What are the requirements, and what are the tools that are available, right? I think the overarching theme here is around, sort of how do I construct a security, sort of strategy and use, an ASPM tool on an open source stack, right? And so we want to maybe talk a little bit about SDLC and sort of why it's so important to sort of take an end-to-end view. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the jobs to be done there. Unifying, security management. Again, this becomes one of those things where I like to get into, sort of talking about, sort of how do I simplify with application security posture management? How do I take that concept and sort of simplify, and sort of what avenues does that open up for me in terms of the tooling that I'm going to use, and how do I manage costs, using things like open source tools? What are my options there, right? I don't want you guys to think that this is some sort of open source pitch. I think the idea behind this is there's a lot of innovation that happens inside the open source, sort of software communities. And I think the overarching thing here that I want to make sure you guys walk away with is the need for flexibility, right? Nobody likes things like vendor lock-in. And it's not just about being held hostage, from a pricing or budgetary perspective by that vendor, but it's also about, sort of being able to continue to make innovation available to you, sort of as it comes down the pipeline. And so, obviously that's important, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Reducing costs. Look, guys. I think at the end of the day, if this was one of those situations where we could all print money as organizations, these problems would be easy to solve. We just keep throwing money at it and wait for it to go away. None of us live in that world, right? We all have to fit within a budget. We have to, start to implement things like risk management strategies as we have to make tough decisions. I want to shed some light on some of those options that are available out there in open source. And, how do you, formulate a strategy where, because one of the things you don't get from open source is a lot of visibility. They don't spend a lot of time working on UIs and things of that nature. How do you bring that with your underpinnings being open source?